Welcome to Leaders and Learners. My name is Tanya McKenzie, and you can find me at the intersection of public relations and leadership. Join us as we talk to organizational leaders, elected officials, experts, authors, artists, and personalities, sharing their stories, talking about how they got to where they are and how they continue to learn and lead the way. So without further ado, let's get into it. Greetings, good people. Welcome to another edition of Leaders and Learners, where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. And today, you're going to learn a little something about immigration and the entertainment industry, immigration and the fight for what's right, and where you fit in this immigration conversation. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to this guy. He was like on Forbes. He's done some very cool things when it comes to this issue. He's a doctor. He's an attorney. Mr. Felipe Alexandre, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for the invite.
I'm glad to have you because, as you know, we're in election season, and that's when things get all nasty. But from what I know about you, you know how to clean up a nasty mess, especially when it comes to immigration. So if you don't mind, do the people a little favor and let them know what it is that you actually do. Why do people need you? Why do they call you?
Beautiful. It's always a pleasure to kind of spread this education and awareness. I grew up as an immigrant myself. My parents, took me from Brazil to here when I was a young kid. I grew up seeing the difficulties that immigrants have and getting accustomed to a different society and also a different legal system. And it's been my mission to really treat my law firm as a church. Immigrants of all walks of life, socioeconomic status are welcome here. And so why do people call us? Because they want to be able to come or remain in this great country and work, live, study legally without the threat of being kicked out, hovering over them. And so it's our job to find a creative solution within the bounds of the law to help them do exactly that. So whether they're investors or refugees or artists or athletes, we help people from all walks of life stay in this great country.
Okay. So there seems to be a misconception about immigration, right? There's been some horrible things said about immigrants. But I
Mhm.
think the conversation around why someone would need you, why someone would be here not legally yet, how that actually happens, I don't think there's a really good explanation. I think there's a lot of misconceptions and misinformation about that. So talk to us about how the most people that you work with, how did they get here, and how do they find themselves in a situation needing your help?
That's wonderful. So I would say that I have, if I can roughly separate them, I have two sorts of categories of clients and how they come here and how they're able to obtain their status. Maybe half of my clients, they either do it from abroad. We can actually start the immigration process here, and this is depending on an investment they make. This is dependent on their ability as a professional. So I'm a great engineer, I'm a physician, I'm a researcher, I'm an athlete, I'm an artist. And so based on the evidence of their career, we can actually get an initial approval, and then they do the rest at the US Embassy and they come here. Or some of them are already here on some kind of status. And so again, through investment, through their education, through their professional abilities, they are able to be here. Some are through family petition, but for the most part, I would say a lot of them are through career or a company directly sponsors them. These are some examples. And then the other half is more, I would say, humanitarian people who are here as refugees or people who are placed in removal proceedings and who want to stay here, but didn't have the right information. And so it's our job to fight for them, to analyze what's going on in their home countries, to accentuate or highlight the dangers of returning to that country. So it's really neat because in this law firm, we see all kinds of cases. It's the difficulties that the investor has in choosing the right product, or the athlete and making sure that he's not deviating from the contract and doing other things besides receiving from his actual fights. We get to hear all kinds of stories, and that's what we are. We are storytellers. We tell the story in the best light to give our clients the best chance of remaining here.
Where did you get your law degree from?
I got it from Indiana, Bloomington. I was raised in Florida, and when it came time to for law school, I wanted a traditional college town. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Miami. That was great, very international, and so Bloomington, Indiana, kind of gave me that experience. And also, I chose them because they had an exchange agreement with China. And
Mm.
I wound up being able to go to China for a year, studying law with Chinese classmates in Chinese, and actually getting credit for my JD while I did that. So that was a really cool experience too.
So, why law? Do you just want to argue with people? Do you like arguing with people? What?
Not
Where did that
really.
come from? I don't believe it. I don't know.
Yeah, it came from just growing up around immigrants and seeing the difficulties
Okay.
they were going through, seeing people ripped off, seeing people get deported because they just didn't get the right information or they didn't do what they had to do in time. And then also seeing how some, and I say some because the vast majority are wonderful people, but some people in authority, law enforcement, immigration officials, etc., how they treat people. And again, it's the vast majority are great people. I want to really highlight that. But seeing how abuse of power takes place both in the immigration system and the criminal justice system, all of that kind of fueled me to really embrace the law. And I would say ever since high school, I was blessed to have a course on law in my junior year. Before, I was really kind of lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And there was an ex-NYPD detective, and he came in there. He's like, all right, we're going to talk about the law. Read all about it. It's the Constitution, and nothing greater than the Constitution. And I'll never forget that old man. And he really planted something special in my heart. So yeah, that's why the law.
Tell me, tell the audience one of the worst stories that you have witnessed or been told or had to deal with in regards to someone overstepping their bounds or abusing their authority when it came to immigrants.
Well, I'm working on a case right now where the applicant, the lady, she is a qualified physical therapist, and she applied for something called a national interest waiver, which is the U.S. government analyzes her contributions and what she's going to do, and she's going to open a physical therapy clinic, and they analyzed all of her support letters and her evidence and the things that she's done and what she's going to do for the country. And they said, you know what, this is someone that is going to contribute to our national interest. And she got the initial approval for that. This was a trained immigration officer who looked at everything and gave her the initial approval. That's step one. Usually, if you get step one, step two is usually a given, but it's not always. And this case illustrates that it's not always. She was called for an immigration interview with her husband, and the immigration officer there, we don't know if he had a horrible day or that's just the way he is with every client, but it's really scary. He totally verbally and mentally abused the client for hours. Her and her husband, when she tried to answer or to clarify things, he would call her a liar. And he even said, "All right, are your kids here? Because now it's my turn to terrorize your kids." Like, just wow, horrible stuff. And so we're taking this one to the Circuit Court of Appeals. A lot of times it's very hard to have the courts accept jurisdiction over these matters based on some Supreme Court issues. But we're arguing that the egregiousness of the behavior in that, he essentially said that she fabricated her physical therapy degrees without having any basis to do this, besides all the support letters of people who she helped and pictures and degrees and certificates and her badge from like the National Physical Therapy Board, and just being so insulting. So we're hoping that the Court of Appeals will reverse this one. So that's an example of someone who, for no reason, just decided to pick on this woman. And again, even if you have a criminal record, you deserve to be treated as a human being. And it wasn't the case. Like, there was nothing about this case that would make an immigration officer so indignant at her for whatever reason. He just decided to throw the book at her. Maybe he got in a fight with his spouse that day. Who knows?
Now, you're from Brazil, correct?
Yes, correct.
And the way that you talk about the Constitution and the laws here, you would think that you were born here. Like, I'm pretty impressed.
Okay.
But I
Appreciate
think
it.
there are people that don't think that it's really, how do I say this? That don't think that it's really possible for someone that's not from here to really internalize American values and American traditions and traits. Not that any of our traditions actually stick, but I digress. So, how does that happen? Like, talk to us about the process. And I didn't ask you when you came from Brazil, but that process of once you come here, how do you begin to acclimate and really um, just become Americanized?
I think for me it was easy. It was natural because I came when I was 7, and so
Mm.
you have no choice but to embrace your environment. And so obviously my English is much better than my Portuguese. Although I've my parents forced me to speak Portuguese as well, and raised us to be multilingual. And so for that, I'm always grateful. It created a passion for learning about other languages and cultures. But the vast majority of our clients, they embrace this country. They embrace what they stand for. That's why they come here, and some they come already as grown-ups. And so learning language, it's not the same way for everyone. Some people like myself, we love it. I still study new languages now, even though I'm in my 40s. But some people, so they have a hard time. But regardless of their proficiency in the English language, all of my clients love this country, love what it stands for, love the freedoms here. And that's how it happens. Immigrants come here with a passion to be here, with a passion to contribute. And once we're able to give them that green light through a legal document that proves that they can stay here, they just want to really hit the ground running and do their very best. And so there's really nothing like this country anywhere. There's many great countries out there for sure, but there's something special about this history, something special about what we stand for that attracts people to come here. And so people naturally want to come here and they want to be as American as they can possibly be. Somebody like me, it was easy. Mom and dad, hats off to them.
So kudos to them, because to me, it sounds like parenting has a lot to do with how you turn out, regardless of where you're from. Yeah.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Let me ask you this then. How do you feel about the way immigrants are demonized?
Very insulted, not only
Like,
because I'm an immigrant. Yeah.
talk to me about that though. And do you have kids? Do you have to teach them to ignore these people? Like, how do we as a country navigate that? I need to help me with that.
I do have a kid. I call him Vinny Blue Eyes because has these bright blue
Oh,
eyes. And so I recently took him to. I'm very involved with many ethnic communities, including the Chinese community. I'm fluent in Mandarin, have a YouTube channel in Mandarin, and so we've helped a lot of political refugees from China stay here and escape persecution. So I actually took him to a protest June 4th. The horrible Tiananmen massacre happened in June 4th. So they have these remembrances, not commemoration. It's a remembrance of what happened. And they were speaking angrily. And I took my son so he could see this. He's going to turn 5 in a few weeks. And he's like, Daddy, they're angry. I'm like, yes, son, they're angry, but they're angry because of what happened to them. But they're our friends. And sure enough, we literally had over 24 people, because they recognized me from the channel, come over and take pictures and take pictures of Vinny Blue Eyes. So that was a really cool experience. So when I see people like that, or I see my clients from the Latino community, the Brazilian community, whether they're working here as engineers or janitors or construction, it's insulting down to my core, because I know these people. I know how hard they've worked to get here in the first place, what they've gone through to have certain simple experiences that you and I at this point we take for granted, and really to know their integrity and how that's being demonized to score political points for certain people. I think it's atrocious.
so how do you talk to your son about that though? How do you have that conversation with a young person to get them to recognize you're amazing, where we come from is amazing, and something is wrong with them? Like, that's just me. Like, those people are acting up.
Yeah.
What do you say to your young person?
So in our dialogues, we haven't gotten to the other people yet. I'm just going to leave the other people in their corner. Uh,
Yeah.
I just want to focus on the good. I want to
Yeah.
focus on the good. I want him to know why we do what we do. You know, my wife and I. My wife is, she's the real boss. She runs the show administratively. She's our COO, and she does an amazing job. And I tell him, look, I know that we work long hours. But there's a reason we do it. And I'm going to tell him, we do it for you. I'm like, no, we could do something else and stay home more often. We do it to leave a legacy. We do it to help the people that need our help. Our clients count on us, our team counts on us. So we're trying to instill in him that, hey, we help people for a living. And at times helping people is not easy, but it's really the only way to go to have a meaningful life. You be in the service of others. So he's starting to understand that, and so he comes
Mm.
over and he takes pictures behind the computer like he owns the place. And he's becoming a part of the office. He walks in the office, he knows the people already. Our attorney has an aquarium. He just walks in like he owns the place. So you know we're having fun with him.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Listen, I know that you're doing some work in the entertainment space. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so again, immigrants from all walks of life, and so that space is very interesting. The artists, the athletes, and so for a few years now, we sponsored a few film festivals, including the Los Angeles Brazilian Film Festival. I think it's really neat that these events, they give immigrants a platform to showcase their talents. And actually, that's a way for them to eventually be able to come to the U.S. They show that they're really good at what they do. They're really good directors. They're really good actors. And if they're able to win award at a prestigious event, such as a prestigious film festival, the Brazilian one, the international, whatever it is, that gives them an ability to also file for a petition. And that's really fun. I really enjoy working with those clients because it's not easy for them to get to where they are. They went through many years of making little to no money, but just hustling after the dream. And I'm a big believer in going after your dreams, and those folks, they really put it all on the line. And so I really enjoy working with them.
What is a reason for someone to get their immigration status denied?
One, it could just be a very arbitrary decision, but if not, let's talk about some faux pas or some pitfalls that people should definitely avoid. One, they hire someone that's not an attorney or a very unscrupulous attorney, and that person encourages them to put information on the application that is false, or sometimes does it without their knowing. These clients aren't necessarily fluent in English. I'm like, yeah, I filled out everything, just sign. That will get them into a lot of trouble. Even if the application is prepared properly, you need to document everything that you say that you say you're going to do. I'm an amazing engineer, and I'm going to continue with my research in the U.S. Prove what you've done, right? It's not the officer's job to look you up. You have to prove everything. I'm a refugee from China, and I'm afraid of religious persecution. We all know that Christians are persecuted in China. Therefore, you should give me asylum. No, you have to prove everything. You have to put everything on the record. And so that's something that people are taken aback. There are certain facts that are obvious, but they still need to be put on the record, or else they will not be considered. It's cruel. And unfortunately, people that don't have the right representation, they just assume what would be obvious to you and me will apply in the immigration world, and it won't. Here's something with clients who had a run-in with the criminal justice system. Again, I was talking to a father yesterday of a son who's in this situation. He's like, yeah, but I was told that if we expunge the California conviction, then it will be erased, and then the ground of inadmissibility, as they call it, won't apply, and he'll be able to come back to this country. And I said, well, perhaps for purposes of the state of California, that will be a big help in terms of being able to find employment, etc. But the definition in immigration of a conviction, it's very cruel. If you accepted or were found to be guilty of the offense, and your liberty was restrained in any way, or you suffered any kind of punishment from the system, that is a conviction, period. There's no exit clause, if it was ever expunged. So anyway, a lot of evidence, contacting the right person, contacting someone that's an expertise and whatever you're trying to accomplish, and not someone who perhaps had very nice marketing. Nice marketing is a way for you to perhaps be curious and go see what they are, but really do research and see the caliber of professionals that are going to work on your case.
So if you're going to say someone, if you say I'm being persecuted over in my country and that's why I'm here, how do you prove that you are being persecuted? Like, how do you prove that? What does that look like?
Yeah. So the evidentiary standard is generous because they know our circuit courts have said, we recognize that the persecutor usually won't write an affidavit for you saying, yes, we are currently persecuting this individual. So they will allow, other forms of evidence. But for example, let's talk about a lot of our clients who have been persecuted. Witness letters, even though that it's clearly hearsay because the person isn't here to be cross-examined, they accept those. If it's a sworn affidavit and it's consistent with what the client is saying and it's written detailed, witness letters are great. Pictures of whatever happened, medical reports. If you were detained, if there's any kind of proof, sometimes they have to write what's called the guarantee letter. Sometimes they have to pay a bond, which is really a bribe to the officials. There's ways that you can kind of put the puzzles together, and then adjudicators and immigration judges, they're trained on assessing credibility. So they will see the evidence in its totality and the way you transmit the evidence through the testimony, and then they decide whether or not to grant you or not.
Okay. So here's my question. Amnesty. Talk to the people. What is amnesty and how do you go about getting amnesty?
Amnesty is going to have to be something passed by Congress. If I'm not mistaken, the last time it happened was 1986. Congress has gone back and forth on an immigration bill, but since it's an election year, some people want to get it done, some people don't. So it went to the back seat. If we're able to get some meaningful immigration reform passed, you have a lot of people who are here without any immigration status, and it's not my job to judge them. We don't know why it happened. Some got here with legal status, but received the wrong advice and they fell out of status. Some jumped in because they're so desperate for a better life for their family so they can send money back. Whatever it is, these people are eager to contribute to our economy. And so if we created a law where we gave them the opportunity to pay, a hefty immigration filing fee or a fine or however you want to call it, but then give them the opportunity to contribute, I think that would be great. A struggle that we're currently seeing, and that's been highlighted by President Biden's recent proclamation or executive order, is what's happening at the border. We have record number of people trying to enter and claim asylum and refugee status. And our heart goes out to them because we believe that the vast majority are fleeing not only economic circumstances, but some kind of violence, some kind of persecution, some kind of oppression. But at the same time, our immigration system is limited in the number of cases that we can take and the number of officers that we have, the number of officers that we can hire. And if we were to pass immigration reform, part of the reform is border security / allocation for more officers to adjudicate these credible claims. And so right now we're going through a tough period, and President Biden passed. Some people like it, some people don't. It's what do you do at this point? So he says, if the daily average of people, if it drops from 4,300 where it is now to under 1,500, then we'll be a little bit more flexible with asylum applicants. But if it continue being this high, folks will not be able to apply for asylum. If they enter illegally, they'll be able to apply for a lesser form of protection, and which will be tougher for them to prove.
What's the hardest part of your job?
One of them, it might not be emotionally the hardest, and maybe I'll get to that after this, but really one of the most annoying parts of my job, and this annoys and bogs down our staff and our team. It's just the bureaucracy we have to deal with. It's the mess that's in immigration right now. They'll reject forms for no reason. They'll say you didn't include a certain page when you did. They say it wasn't signed when it was signed. And of course, the client is going to blame who? They initially blame you, like, oh, this is your fault. Not to say we're perfect, but this happens so much. Just, mistakes that immigration makes, and then you try to get somebody on the phone. Good luck with that. So the waiting time, the bureaucracy, the mistakes they made, bouncing packages back, you have to do it all over again. The stress the client feels, it would reduce a lot of the client anxiety and stress if it could be more efficient and organized. Again, I know it's not easy. I know how overworked they are. I understand, where they're coming from. And then the other one, I think it's just it's dealing with that client anxiety. But it's something we've become good at because we've done so many of these cases. A client gets what's called an RFE, request for evidence. Oh no, they're going to deny my case. This is the end. And we'll hold their hands either virtually or physically. And we'll say, look, we've done a lot of these cases. This RFE, they're just hitting some bullet points. It's probably the officer just wanting to make sure that their supervisor has enough information so they can grant you the case. Let's answer the RFE as robustly as possible, and you're going to be fine. And then they get the green card. So there's struggles, but it's worth the fight.
What's the best part of your job?
Seeing the approval, whether it's a green card petition or getting somebody out of detention. Wow, it's amazing when they realize I'm going to get to stay here, and their eyes light up, and you really form a friendship with these clients, and it's one of the most valuable parts of the job.
Why did you decide to start your own firm instead of, I don't know, work with someone else?
So I was a public defender out of law school, and I got a fellowship to be the immigration expert in my office. And so when you had non-citizens who had an encounter with the criminal justice system, they would come to me and say, okay, we're going to plead to something, but can it be something that won't cause deportation? Everybody, people make a mistake, and whatever, if they reach a plea agreement, they're going to pay the price that's stipulated by, the defendant with the state, but deportation is a much greater punishment. It's in some cases it's a death sentence, depending on where the person comes from and what characteristics they have that might be persecuted at home. And so I did that for a few years. I would not only help my law office, and I was promoted to a statewide position in New York where I would help criminal defense attorneys from New York, but then other states would call too, and they would, have me train them on this area we call crimmigration. It's the intersection of immigration and criminal offenses, and it's a niche, and it's a niche I've become very good at to help people who made a mistake, try to keep them in the country so they can continue living a good life. After I did that for a while, my parents' health wasn't great in Florida. I went down. I decided I was going to stay, and then it was just natural. I had a New York license at the time, and with one license, you can practice immigration law in all 50 states. So I said, let me just open something. And coincidentally, my childhood friend had also become an immigration lawyer. He came up. I knew deportation, defense, crimmigration. He knew like business immigration and ability-based immigration. So we teamed up, and we founded our first office in Orlando, Florida in 2013.
Crimmigration, new word for the day. Give me 3 words that you would never want affiliated with you.
Wow. Okay. Dishonest, lazy, and incompetent.
Those are good.
Yeah.
Honest. Okay, so you're not a crook. Lazy. So you're very okay. And okay. I got it. Give me 3 words that your wife would affiliate with you.
Stubborn, inspiring, and tenacious.
I love that. Okay, now 3 from your son.
Wonderful, funny, and brave.
Oh my God. Isn't that great how kids see us? We
Yeah,
definitely don't see ourselves there. Okay, great. Love
he
it.
had to fill out this thing, about dad. We went to this event called Donuts with Dad, and they're like, "So your father is good at eating." The heck, man! I spent all my, I can't. There's nothing more meaningful than that. So I'm not doing a good job. And what is your father like doing the most? So that it showed me I had something to work on. He goes, working.
Working,
And I,
working.
I told him, look, I work because we help people, but what I like to do the most is spending time with Vinny. You got that? He nodded.
Let me get that in your head. You are it. No, no. Okay, last three. The three things, three words that your clients would affiliate with you.
Unstoppable,
I heard that.
creative, and compassionate.
Oh, okay. I like it. I like it. So listen, I appreciate you taking the time sharing with me and the audience about the work that you're doing and how you're
Likewise.
making a difference and how you're being a great father. That's always number one for me. Like parents are everything.
Yeah.
Um, but let the people know how they can get in touch with you or keep you top of mind if they know someone that needs you, your socials, and how you can be in contact.
Absolutely. My personal Instagram is Meet Felipe. It's meet.felipe, my first name. My firm is Alexandre. So it's Alexander, but like Dre at the end. I tell you, like Dr. Dre. Alexandre Law. So we have Instagram and we have a website, alexanderlaw.com. If you're in California, the local number is 626-509-2126. Just look me up in Google or Instagram. You'll find us, and we're here to answer your questions.
He's the Dr. Dre of attorneys. All
There
right,
we
we'll
go.
go with that.
Love it.
Listen, thank you again. I appreciate it. And please, if there's anything that we can do to help support you and what you have going on, definitely keep us posted. I'm wishing you all the best.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, keep that cape on that clearly your son sees around your neck.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. And thank you for your work as well, Tanya.
Thank you. Take it easy.
All
Hey,
right.
thanks for showing up to the podcast where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. When you get a sec, take a moment, leave a comment. What you think about today's episode, and share it with someone that you know could use the gems that were dropped today. Follow and subscribe. You don't want to miss who's coming up next. You never know who could show up here and what they could say. For your professional needs, marketing, PR, communications, and leadership, make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at Sand and Shores or hit us up at sandandshores.com. Again, thanks so much for showing up. We appreciate you, and we'll see you soon.